all of a sudden I had this vision. I could clearly see my dad and my brother on the side of a road in a ditch, and they were dead. It horrified me. Just talking about it now makes my stomach hurt. But at the same time, I'm not having this feeling like you shouldn't go. I'm still feeling I need to go. Like something's telling me you need to go.
This is Touched by Heaven. Everyday encounters with God. Those moments when heaven and earth collide and we see God. We see His hand reaching out to us, attempting to get our attention, inviting us into a closer relationship. Here we share stories of encounter with angels, divine intervention, prophetic dreams, visions. Anyone say visions? Near-death experiences, big and little God incidents. I'm your host, Trapper Jack. Welcome. Episode 187, The Vision That Thwarted a Murder. Our guest today is Nancy.
So I really did have to pray about this. I really had to pray about how do I want to tell this? How do I want to share this? I don't know. I had a lot to think about. I had a lot to think about before I could share this.
Nancy will be the first person to tell you she's a chicken. She'll say it. Danger, I'm going the other way. 180 degrees. I'm turning around and going the other way, but not today. Not in this episode. It's amazing what the Holy Spirit does with Nancy and with this entire story, the divine intervention, the power of prayer in all of this. Actually, if we want to get a little bit of Nancy's background into faith.
When I was little, my parents used to send us to Mexico in the summer. We did that for a couple years to stay with my grandparents, my paternal grandparents. And my grandmother, she was a very devout Catholic. She prayed the rosary every night. She was, had her altar, the whole thing. And she's the one who taught me how to pray. So when we would spend summers there, she would teach me prayers and she would pray with us every night. And so that's kind of where I think the majority of my faith comes from, her teaching us prayer and her always telling us that she's constantly praying for us.
Now, with all that said, the vision that thwarted a murder on Touched by Heaven.
My dad bought a ranch in Mexico sometime in 2011, I believe.
Nancy's dad was born in Mexico, moved to the U.S. when he was in his teens, and now he has a ranch.
And I had a son in 2010, so I kind of wasn't really part of my dad's life a lot because I was busy. Sometime in 2012, when things kind of settled down for me, my dad reached out to me. He needed help with his work stuff, and he needed help with accounting, and he trusted me. My dad, that's one thing about my dad, that he always has trusted me and my opinion, and he trusts me with everything, like all his accounts, his money, his everything. So he had asked me to come on board and work for him and help him with accounting because he was in over his head. And he had this ranch in Mexico and he had a couple of businesses here in the United States. So I agreed. I said, okay, I can do that on a part-time basis. No big deal. And at the time, my dad was dating a woman that I didn't know. I had never met her before, but my brother had, and, he had his own personal opinions about her. When I meet somebody, I kind of like to deal with them based on how they deal with me. His history with her is his history with her, and I had no history with her, so I wasn't going to go into the relationship like that. So I was kind of very open-minded when I met her, and she was nice. She seemed, fairly nice. She looked a little high maintenance for my dad, but I just kind of like, well, whatever. If he's happy, I'm happy. And at the time, my dad had her family running his ranch in Mexico. And he had two ranches in Mexico. He had one in his hometown and one in her hometown. And he was, throwing money at these projects. These are like agricultural businesses. So he had avocados in one of them, papayas in the other. And then he also had cows.
So, and she's kind of taking care of all that for him? Or
Yes, her family, her brother-in-law and her sister are running these ranches.
Okay.
So, and my dad's, again, throwing money at these projects.
Do you think foolishly? Or?
At that time, I wasn't sure. I did notice that there was a lot of excess spending. But again, I was like, he's a grown man. He can do whatever he wants. It's not really my business.
And you're the accountant. You're just the accountant, basically.
Yes,
right?
that's how I looked at this. He just asked me to keep track of the spending. I will keep track of the spending. How he wants to spend it, it's up to him.
Okay.
It's not up to me. So sometime in June, maybe May or June, my Dad and I were talking about my grandmother's health, and she wasn't doing very good. And so, we were talking about it, and I hadn't seen her in a couple years. I would say maybe 3 years I hadn't seen her. But I hadn't been to his hometown in over 10 years. And Mexico was not very safe. I don't know if you remember around that time, but it just wasn't safe. People were disappearing. There was a lot of for ransom stuff going on. And I didn't want anything to do with that. We hadn't been back
was
to
that
Mexico.
drug cartel related, or was that
Yes.
totally separate from that?
It was both. It was
Okay.
drug cartel related, or people who would just go from here and somebody thought, well, they look like they have money, somebody's going to pay for them, and they would kidnap people.
Oh, we know
So there was
families
this-
up here that were just devastated by deaths in their family because people suddenly were missed, suddenly
Yes.
kidnapped,
So
suddenly,
Yeah,
It-
so that's what was going on. And I was like, nope, don't want anything to do with that.
yeah.
I'm not going. So I stayed away until early 2013, mid 2013-ish. My grandma was getting sick, and I don't know, I had this feeling that she wasn't going to make it through the year. And I don't know what it was, but in my heart, I just knew, like, she's not going to make it through the year. I need to go see her one last time before she goes. And she couldn't travel. So I talked to my husband and I said, hey, look, I need to go see her. And he was like, are you crazy? Doing that whole, like, no way, it's unsafe. We have a little boy who's about to be 3. What are we going to do? What if something happens to you? We did that whole thing. And I was like, nope, I have to go. Like, you don't understand. It's my grandma. I would never keep you from your grandma. I have to go. So he said, okay, fine. So we decided that we were going to take advantage of the 4th of July weekend and go see her. And about a month before that, I started, and I only remember this now because I was cleaning out a computer for my dad the other day to give it back to him. And I realized that I was sending his girlfriend emails like sometime in June asking her for more detailed accounting in Mexico. So I was asking, hey, I need these breakdowns. Could you please give me this information? And I was kind of pushing a lot more for information because they weren't giving me a lot of information. And so I don't remember her giving it back to me, but she was like, oh yeah, I'll get it. Oh yeah, I'll get it. But there wasn't a whole lot of back and forth. She wasn't very, very forthcoming. So now the time of the trip comes around. About a day before the trip, I was sitting there. I remember I was with my son. We were in my bedroom. I don't know what I was doing, but all of a sudden I had this vision, and I could clearly see my dad and my brother on the side of a road in a ditch, and they were dead. And I knew they had been dead for a while because they were bloated. Their bodies were bloated. And I could see my brother, and I knew it was my brother because I could see my brother's tattoos. And it horrified me. Like, just talking about it now makes my stomach hurt.
Have you ever had anything like that before?
I had never seen something like that before.
You've never had a vision like that where you're just suddenly seeing something for no apparent reason?
Never. I had never had a vision of something like, whoa, what is that? Like, never.
And where is your brother in all of this, in this story?
My brother's going with us on this trip. He's kind of, doing his own thing, living his own life.
It's going to be you, your brother.
My dad and his girlfriend were going. And then me and my brother from my mom and my dad's marriage. Mm-hmm. And then my 13-year-old brother was coming.
Okay. And all to basically go see grandma because you're thinking we should go do this now.
We need to go see her before it's too late.
And you're getting this vision of your dad and your brother dead on the side of a road, bloated and been there for a while.
Yeah. I see this vision of these dead bodies on the side of the road. And Trapper, I'm the biggest chicken. I'm the biggest chicken. Like, I will, oh, nope, not going. Like, I'd be the first to, oh, the tire looks low. Yeah, not going. Like, I will not go. I will not put myself in danger if I don't have to.
And you're getting a vision that says, yeah.
Red alert, right? So I'm getting this vision, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm not having this feeling like you shouldn't go. Like, I'm still feeling I need to go. So I was really conflicted. I'm just like, I'm seeing this, but I shouldn't go because I'm seeing this, but because I have this little boy and he needs me, and all these things are going through my head. But at the same time, I'm like, no, I need to go. Like, something's telling me you need to go. So I didn't even tell my husband. I told nobody about this vision. I kept it to myself. I was like, this is crazy. don't know what this is about. I'm not even going to share
Was it
this.
hard to keep it to yourself, or did it
It
just?
was. It was because I knew if I told my husband, he would be, heck no, you're not going. Like, that's it. You're not going. And at the same time, if I told my dad or my brothers, they would have been like, what are you talking about? It would have been, you're going crazy, or I don't know. It was just weird.
But
So I didn't tell
they know
anybody.
you as a sane human being.
Yes, they do. But I don't know. I don't know why I didn't tell them. I was afraid. I wasn't sure why I was seeing this,
And everybody knows every accountant is totally rational and logical, right? Aren't you all?
I didn't know. So I just kept it to myself and I didn't say anything.
And this is the day before you're going.
This was like a day or two before we're leaving. So then the day of the trip comes. We are flying at a TJ.
What is TJ?
Tijuana.
Okay, you're going to fly. You're going to go to Tijuana and fly out of there.
Yes,
okay.
From a region, and we were flying into a small, little, teeny tiny regional airport in Mexico.
Okay,
because that's the only way we could get to this regional airport to get to my dad's hometown, which is a tiny little town, right? And this tiny little airport was in a town called Colima, which was about an hour away from his hometown. So it made more sense to fly into a regional airport and only drive an hour with everything that's going on in Mexico, right? Because you have to remember, Mexico's not safe. So we didn't want to be on the road for 4 hours. We thought, it's best to drive into this little town and just drive an hour and be safe.
Sure. Okay.
So we drive down to Tijuana. My brothers and my dad and I, we take the bus across to the airport. We get to the airport and my dad's girlfriend's not there yet. So then finally she arrives. And when she got there, she was being really weird. Like, she didn't say hi to us. She didn't come sit next to us. She wasn't engaging with us. Like, she was being very standoffish. And I thought it was really strange because, we weren't best friends, but she was always cordial. And I remember asking my dad, what's wrong with her? And he says, I don't know. And I'm like, why isn't she sitting with us? Why is she being so weird? And he was like, I don't know. And he didn't have a response. He was like, I don't know. And then, so I was kind of like, okay, this is really weird. And then, so we start talking about what we're going to do when we get there. And my dad says, oh, by the way, when we get there, we're going to go to Colomos first. Colomos is her hometown. And I said, what? We're going where? And he's like, yeah, we got to go to Colomos first because I'm going to go look at the ranch there. And I said, no, Dad, that wasn't the agreement. The agreement was we were going to fly into Colima and we were going to drive straight to your town, which is Tamazula. We were going to drive straight there to see Grandma, to take advantage of the time we had with Grandma. And he says, oh, no, well, I agreed to this. And I said, well, that's not what I agreed to. So then me and my dad are having like this little discussion at the airport in TJ. And I was honestly, I was pissed. I was really mad. And I told him, he says, what, we can't. He's like, we'll change it. We need to change it because I can't drive there. We're going to go here instead. He says, I can't. They're only going to bring one car. We all have to go together.
In the back of your mind right now, are you thinking bloated dad and brother?
Yes. So I'm like, we're going to die. We're going to die. We're all going to die. Is what I'm thinking, honestly.
And you can't just say, well, I had this vision, Dad.
No.
But in the back of your mind, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm thinking we're going to die. We're going to die. That's it. I'm never going to see my son turn 3. I'm going to die. And in my mind, this is playing and I'm freaking out. Like, I'm hot. I'm sweating. I'm hot, but then even then, normal Nancy would have been like, you know what? I'm going to go back to the United States. I'll see you guys later. Have a nice trip. I would have turned my hiney around, left that airport, jumped on a taxi and headed back home and called my husband, come get me. But I didn't. I stayed. So again, like, there was like this thing that said, you have to go. So when my dad walked away, I started praying. I started praying so hard. Like, I don't think I've ever prayed that hard. I prayed to God. I prayed to our Virgen de Guadalupe. I prayed to my guardian angels. I like, you're all getting a prayer today.
Yeah. I want intercession. I want the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. I want everybody in.
Everybody. Please, whoever can show up, please show up. Like, we cannot die. And in my mind, I was like, I need to be here for my son. I can't go. I have a baby. I have a little boy who's about to turn 3. I have his birthday party planned when I get back. I can't go. My brother had a baby on the way. He can't go. And I was like, please, please, please don't let us die. We need to come back. Just let me say goodbye to her. Let me spend some time with my grandma. And please, Lord, let me come back. I need to come back. And we got on the plane. My dad sat with his girlfriend. I sat between my two brothers. And I prayed until I fell asleep. And then at some point we were landing and I woke up and I started praying again. And the whole time I'm just in my mind, I'm just like, saying my prayers, asking God, asking the Virgen de Guadalupe, asking my angels, asking anybody who will listen, please help us. Don't let us die. Please don't let us die.
All right. In the midst of all this praying, and just before the plane is about to land, let's pause for just one moment here. Just a quick Patreon shout out because those in the Patreon family keep all this going. So thanks, Amy. Amy Thompson, thank you so much for being a part of this Patreon family and supporting us on a monthly basis. Thank you for that. If you'd like to join the family as well, you can come here to episode 187 at touchedbyheaven.net or go to patreon.com and search for Trapper Jack. Simple as that. All right. Time's up. Let's get back here on Touched by Heaven, everyday encounters with God.
So we get off the plane. We're waiting for my bags, and I'm still really worried. And I asked my dad, Dad, isn't there a way, can't we just take a taxi? Is there like a taxi we can take to my grandma's instead? And he's like, look around. There's no taxis. He's like, there's not even a vending machine in here. It's such a tiny airport. So, and I looked around. He wasn't kidding. There's not even a vending machine. And so at this point, I'm like, we're grabbing our bags. We're walking out to the parking lot, and the girlfriend's still not talking to us. And I'm like, that's it. We're going to die. Like, I guess that's it. That's all she wrote, right? And I'm still not saying anything. I'm just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what else to do. And as we walked up to her brother-in-law and her sister, they were standing in front of us, and the brother-in-law stuck his hand out and he shook my dad's hand. He's like, hi, how you doing? And then he stuck his hand out to me, and I was just like, oh, like I got this really bad feeling. I shook his hand and I was like, oh God, I just have this horrible feeling. And his girlfriend left, my dad's girlfriend left our group and went and stood behind them and says, I'm going with them. And he took a set of keys out of his pocket and he holds it out for my dad and he says, here's your keys, follow us. And my dad was kind of surprised because he thought we were all going in the same car because we all fit in one car. But they brought his car that he had over there in Mexico, and they wanted him to follow them. And I looked at my dad and he looked at me. And in that moment, I was like, Dad, we don't have to follow them. We can drive straight to Tamazula. And he looked at me and he was like, oh, like it like clicked,
You now have two cars.
Exactly. We have options now. I looked back at that man and his face, he looked like somebody punched him in the stomach. Like he just did not expect me to say that. And my dad kind of thought about it and he's like, yeah, you're right. Okay. And he turned and looked at the guy and he says, you know what? We're not going to follow you. I'm going to go straight home. We'll go see the ranch later. And the guy, he was just, he was flabbergasted. You could tell that he did not expect my dad to say that. And they all kind of looked at each other. And then we got in our car. They got in our car, went in opposite directions. And the whole way home to my grandma's house, I was like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And we made it. We saw my grandma. We got there late. So we went home. We spent time with her. We visited. We had family over. It was so much fun, to see her. And a couple of days after we were there, maybe a day or two, because I remember we spent like a day or two just with family, my dad said, hey, let's go up to see the ranch, which was in his hometown. So we said, okay. So we all piled into the truck and we drove up to the ranch. When we drove up to the ranch and we got in, everything was dead. Everything. There should have been an avocado grove. Like there was sticks where there should be a tree. It was bad. It looked like nobody had been there. There was weeds. The trees were dead. We went up to the big storage facility where the feed for the cattle. It was empty. There was no feed in there. My dad had been told that they had just bought feed and he had sent money. I mean, he was sending money left and right for the cattle, the medicine for the cattle, the chemicals required for the trees. Engineer cost. I mean, just so much money was going to this ranch, supposedly. The cattle, I remember, was at the bottom of this ditch, and there was sugar canes, and that's what they had to eat. And we were like, what is going on? And I'm looking around because this is not at all what she's been telling my dad. My dad's like, oh yeah, everything looks great. The ranch looks wonderful. The trees are growing. Like, he's getting this whole different story. And I remember looking at my dad, and I've maybe seen my dad cry like 5 times in my whole life. My dad looked like he was going to cry. I remember his eyes were like really watery, and I just kind of stared at him, and I was like, are you okay? And he was like, yeah, I'm okay. And I was like, what's going on? And he's like, I don't know. I have to find out. I don't know. I have to find out. And he didn't really have an answer, but I could tell like he was very much disappointed. So we've spent maybe an hour or so just walking around looking at different things, and then we headed back into town.
So just to recap, he shows up. He's not seeing. He realizes he's been betrayed. Right there.
Yes. Giant betrayal.
Okay. Avocados, no. Cattle, are the cattle dead or alive? What are they?
They're really skinny, but they're alive.
Barely.
It doesn't look good. Yeah. And
no upkeep, no care, no nothing. They're just collecting checks and doing whatever.
Yeah. This is a lot of money. I'm talking like hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is a lot of money. That is, where did it go? So I remember looking at my cousin, and who's about maybe about 7 years younger than me. And I asked him, what do you know? And he was like, look, your dad won't listen to us. We tried telling him that these people are stealing from him. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he says, he's like, the other day when, we saw a truck leave here full of feed. He's like, where was that truck going? It didn't stay here. It left. And he's like, the guy doesn't spend any time up here. The ranch is not being cared for. The animals are not being cared for. And he had like this laundry list of stuff that has been, the rumors that had been flying around about what was going on up there, small town. And he's like, but your dad won't hear us. Like, he's like, nope, like this whole blinded by love thing, right? I was like, wow. So then when we came down to town, I was telling my dad, you really got to listen to what they're telling you. This isn't good. And he was like, oh, well, no, they don't know anything. And he just wasn't ready to hear it. He wasn't in a mindset where he could hear that. But I kind of, okay, well, that's fine. So then a couple of days later, his girlfriend came to visit.
Where was she visiting? At this dump of a ranch?
No, my dad's hometown, his mom's house, which is maybe 30 minutes away from the ranch.
Okay, so she actually showed up.
Yes, but we don't see. She doesn't know that I know this yet. Right?
Oh, because she doesn't know that you went to the ranch.
No, she doesn't know anything. Oh. And so she showed up, and I remember she was still being really weird to us. But I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna. I'm not putting my energy into this. I'm here to see my grandma, whatever. So. I remember seeing her and my dad standing in the middle of the road in front of the house, and they were out there talking for a long time. So I'm sure my dad was, letting her have it. And I came inside and I was talking to my grandmother, and my grandmother said to me, I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time. And I remember I sat down, I was like, well, what's going on? Like, why? I don't understand. And she's like, I tried to figure out how I'm going to talk to you. And I didn't know how I was going to talk to you, but I'm glad you're here. And then my grandma goes into this whole thing, like, you need to get your dad away from that woman. That woman isn't good for your dad. My grandma didn't like her. She didn't like what was going on, all the funny business, And I was like, he's a big man. He doesn't listen. And she's like, well, you're the only one who could talk sense to him. You need to talk to him. And I was like, well, I'll try, but there's only so much I can do. So that's kind of what it was left at. And I figured, well, we'll talk more when we get back to California. And I'm just going to enjoy my time here. Because at this point, I think we're all in the clear now, right? We're good. A couple days pass by and it's time to go home. So we say our goodbyes. My dad and my 13-year-old brother drove me and my older brother to the airport. So we drove the 4 hours, and he dropped us off at the big airport, an international airport, because we were flying into LA. We said our goodbyes. We spent some time there. And then he was from there. My dad said, I'm going to go straight to Colomos to see the other ranch. I didn't think anything of it. I was like, okay, good. Because now my brother, the one I saw bloated on the side of the road, is getting on a plane with me. So this is over. In my mind, this is over. I waited a few days. He came back into the country. And when he got here, I met him at the office. And he sat down at the desk. He's like, I have to tell you something. And I was like, well, okay, tell me. So I sat down with him and he told me when he arrived in Colomos, about a day in, he was at the ranch in Colomos with my 13-year-old brother. When all of a sudden he got a call from his girlfriend's father, and the man was frantic. He said, you need to get your son and you need to leave right now. And my dad was like, well, why? Why do I need to leave? He's like, somebody just came looking for you. He's like, there's 2 trucks full of guys and they just pulled up to the house and they're asking for you and my daughter. You need to leave right now. And my dad just grabbed his son, jumped in the truck and took off. Didn't take anything with him. Left his bag, left his belongings. They didn't bring anything home. They just flew out of there and went straight to his hometown. Didn't turn around. So I kind of stared at my dad when he told me that story, and I was like, oh my God, Dad, I have to tell you something. And then I told him what I had seen. And we just kind of stared at each other like, holy crap. And so it wasn't over. I thought it was over, but it wasn't over. So, but luckily my dad was able to make it back and he was fine. And I remember asking him, well, where's your girlfriend? I thought they were looking for her too. Oh, she's still there. And I was like, really, Dad? That doesn't sound right. And he was like, yeah, it doesn't. But, again, he didn't want to see it. And he ended up dating her for probably another year.
Are you kidding me?
I am not kidding you. And then even when he came back, I was like, Dad, you need to fire these people. And he said, no, I'm going to give him another chance. I was like, what are you thinking? But I was like, okay, deep breaths. Eventually, I convinced him. He did fire them, and he hired our family, who still runs the ranch, and the ranch looks amazing. And my cousin now runs it. He didn't break up with her until probably a year later when I found out that her daughter was stealing money from him via check fraud. I'm not kidding you.
I mean, wow. Guys can be just this. Wow. I mean, I could say something really, we all know what's going on. Okay. We know what's going on with their relationship, and whatever she's got, man, she's got something that he likes, whatever it is. And my gosh.
Right. It was bad. It was so bad that I remember I ended up quitting on him. I was like, I'm not going to work for you anymore.
Did you? The accountant quit?
I did. I quit. I don't, to this day, I only handle the accounting for one of his businesses, and I handle it out of my house on my free time. I don't go into his office anymore. I'm like, I'm not coming back. Like, nope, sorry. I've had enough brushes with death. I'm good.
Sorry, dumb dad, if you don't get this. Wow.
I'm not going to do it. I have no interest in this. So.
Gee.
Yeah, but that was it. I mean, we could have died. I know, and I kind of know that I needed to go because I was going to be the one to convince my dad not to go to Colomos. That I needed to be there to tell my dad, no, we need to go here instead. And had I not gone, my dad and my brother wouldn't be here.
Amen. And they know that, right?
My older brother, he completely knows that. He accepts that and is like, my goodness, my dad, I think deep down inside he knows it, but he won't admit it.
Still, yeah. Now, at the end, okay, they had already taken hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, it's gone.
Why was there a way of getting more? Did they have to kill him?
So if my dad would have died at that time, he had nothing in writing saying where his stuff would go. And I think that this man probably would have benefited greatly from my dad being gone. Like he probably would have got all the cattle because the cattle was in my dad and his name. Maybe even the ranch. I don't know. So there was he would have benefited a lot from my dad dying that day. But he didn't. He didn't. And my dad did get his stuff squared away.
Had he died down there too, I don't get a sense anybody cares much.
No, we wouldn't have found him.
Right?
He would have been gone. He would have been gone.
He would have just disappeared and dead bodies have been found and they would have thrown him wherever they was. Right? Am I right?
Right. Exactly right. We would have never seen him again. He would have been gone forever and never known what happened.
What did you do afterwards? There's no way you can say thank you to the degree that you want to say thank you. But what did you do?
I think for me, it became a real trust. Like, I had faith before. I knew that God answered our prayers. I believed that miracles worked in people's lives all the time. I believe that, but I don't know that I believed it like within me that, how could I say this? Like, I don't think that I was deserving of that. Like, I never felt that he loved me enough to do that for me until this happened. And I think it solidified my faith and my belief.
Does the cross make more sense?
It all makes more sense. Like when you go through something like that and you realize, wow, he loves me so much that he kept me here, that he made sure that I came back to my little boy. And, later on when I got pregnant with my daughter, like it felt like such more like the gift. I understood the gift that he was giving me, like I never had understood before. Oh, I have to tell you, before I forget, There was one other really funny thing that happened. So my grandma died that year, like I said. She died Christmas Day, out of all days. She died on Christmas Day. And so after she dies, my dad is still working with these people, right? And his girlfriend came to his hometown, to the ranch, to go get something that was forgotten there. I don't remember what it was. She called my dad later on that day. She said, I couldn't get it. And then my dad's like, well, what happened? And he's like, well, I drove up to the gate. I drove in. And then all of a sudden, this huge white owl swooped down on her. And then she would try to go the opposite way and it would swoop on her that way. And it wouldn't let her pass the gate. She couldn't step foot on the ranch. And she finally gave up and was like, I can't get on there. This bird won't let me in. And when my dad told me the story, I could not stop laughing. I said, that's your mom. I told you she doesn't like her.
A white owl?
A white owl would not let her onto the ranch. And so now I have like these little white owl statues around my house because I'm like, I know that's grandma. No, that was my grandma.
The fact it's a white owl, it's from God. It's from God. Let's put it that way.
When grandma passed away, I remember telling my dad, if she didn't get into heaven, nobody has a chance. Nobody has a chance because she was that amazing and good of a person. And there's no doubt in my mind that she did not want this lady on her son's property or anywhere near her son.
That she died on Christmas Day says a lot. I know what you're saying. She's saintly. She's saintly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm all on board on that one. I'm all on board on that one. In fact, her prayers may have a lot to do with your vision. Let's put it that way.
You know what, Trapper? I've often thought about that. That maybe she saw something too. Maybe she knew. I don't know.
I've been reading over and over again this book called Insenu Jesu. But one of the things in there, in Jesus talking to this Benedictine monk, he says, please bring me your problems, bring me the concerns, bring me your worries, bring me people that you're worried about, bring me all your issues, bring all of it to me. Just don't bring me your solutions. Let me do what I do. This is my department now, right?
Right.
So I think about your grandmother in her prayers, and she can't do anything. She's stuck. She's an elderly woman it's not like she's going to go out and save the day. So here she is just praying, and I'm sure she just prayed, fix it. I don't know how. Fix it. Right. And God did.
He did. He really did. Yeah. I have no explanation for what happened other than it was divine intervention. God stepped in and he fixed it.
Yeah. God bless.
Yeah.
I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to.
Oh, well, I always ask the guests what the takeaway is. Maybe you've already said it, but if not, tell me again or whatever. But what do you think the takeaway in all this is?
I feel it's trust in God. Trust in God. And like you said, give him your problems and let him find a solution. I think you said it, Yeah. We have no control. We have absolute no control of the situation, and I think I went away like, wow, there are some really bad people in the world, really bad people. And sometimes they walk among us and we don't even know.
It's true.
It changed my perception a lot about who I can trust with what, unfortunately, But I don't know. I think I was very naive before this all happened. It's almost too out there sometimes to really believe, or, I remember when I came back and I told my husband. I didn't tell my husband everything until after what happened to my dad, where how he had to flee. And he just stared at me like, and you still went?
And you still went. Look what you did, Nancy.
Yeah.
You followed the Spirit. I mean, the Holy Spirit said, go. You trusted. And he also messed with the bad guys, because instead of going with plan A, which was one vehicle, the second vehicle gave you your out.
It did. It really did. I had nothing to do with it. I just know that he said go. I went against my analytical mind, and it all worked out. Thank you so much for this.
Thanks, Nancy. Wow. Dramatic enough? Yeah. And again, and I think we just covered all the takeaways, but real quick, again, the power of prayer, of a saintly grandmother. We have a Holy Spirit who empowers somebody who normally would be doing a 180 and get me out of here into, no, I got to go. Even though I just saw what I saw, I still got to go. A God that will make the bad guys do something stupid. Let's do 2 cars. Maybe somebody in one of the cars didn't want to see what was going to be happening. Maybe the girlfriend. I don't know. But again, just God being God. And how do you outdo God on how he gave Nancy that vision and how he orchestrated everything so that it all panned out the way it did? Amazing. So thank you again. So what's your, and remember, these stories are not a competition. What is your story? Angels, divine intervention, vision, near death, whatever it is, get a hold of me here at touchedbyheaven.net. And thank you for your consideration for keeping this going by being a part of Patreon and our Patreon family at touchedbyheaven.net. Just click your way through or go to patreon.com and search for Trapper Jack. And I will see you next week here at Touched by Heaven, everyday encounters with God. I'm Trapper Jack.